Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a real pleasure to be here today to talk to you about Express Entry. It was an added pleasure for me to connect with many former colleagues in the sector. That was certainly a very special treat. Mesdames, Messieurs, bon après-midi. La présentation aujourd'hui sera en anglais, mais évidemment, les diapos seront en français sur cet écran. Si vous avez des questions à la suite, vous pouvez les poser lors de la période de questions ou les poser directement à moi après la présentation. So I'm simply indicating to colleagues that if they wish to ask questions in French, that they are free to do so. So in the coming year, there's going to be some important changes to the economic immigration system. I'm still on that slide, which will better align immigrant selection to the factors that lead to success in Canada, to make it easier to find skilled foreign nationals to meet Canada's labor market needs, and make application processing faster. So I really trust that the presentation this afternoon will help you gain a better understanding about this important change. Next slide. So in January of 2015, the department will launch what is called the Express Entry System. And it is modeled on so-called expression of interest systems that exist in New Zealand and in Australia. The Express Entry is going to be a fully electronic application management system and is going to apply to the key economic programs that you see listed on the slide. So the skilled worker, the skilled trades, the Canadian experience class, and a portion of the provincial and territorial nominee program. So a couple of points that I want to emphasize on this slide. So what we're talking about right now is about permanent immigration. We're talking about persons who wish to become permanent residents of Canada. This is not about temporary foreign workers. That's number one. And number two, it's important to appreciate that Express Entry is a means by which the department can manage applications online. It is not a new program. The individuals who are going to use Express Entry will need to meet the requirements of the existing programs that you see listed on the slide. They'll need to meet the criteria of skilled worker, skilled trades, Canada experience class. Okay? To the next slide. So it's not a new program, but rather it's a way for the department to manage the economic immigration applications and to do it online. From the skilled worker, the skilled foreign workers, Express Entry is going to improve the system from their perspective by reducing the processing times and facilitating matches with Canadian employers to help them secure a job even before arriving in Canada. The next slide is a bit of a comparison. So we talk about the old system, which in fact is we're talking about the system that exists today up until the end of December, and then effective January 15, of course, the new Express Entry system. So how do we compare? So in the past, we processed applications in a first-come, first-served manner. This meant that there was no way to fast-track potential immigrants with the greatest likelihood of success in Canada. For a long time, the department could not control the number of applications submitted. We received more applications than we could accept, which meant that once the application was submitted, it could sit there waiting for months or for years before the processing began. So we have certainly made some headway in improving the processing times. We are currently at an average of 12 to 14 months, but we want to do better. The next slide. So going forward, The candidates who are most likely to succeed in Canada, rather than the first in line, will receive an invitation to apply for permanent residence. And those candidates who have received the invitation to apply will have their completed applications for permanent residence processed in 6 months or less. The next slide. So starting in January, provinces and territories will be able to use the express entry system to find candidates for their provincial nominee programs. Express entry candidates with a nomination will be invited to apply for permanent residence. In addition, under express entry, employers are going to have a more direct role in economic immigration. Candidates with a job offer will automatically be invited to apply. Now, I want to pause here for just one moment to simply emphasize the point that the introduction of express entry does not change the responsibility of Canadian employers to look to Canadian citizens and to permanent residents that are in Canada first in order to fill the vacancies, address the labor market needs that they have within their company or within their firm. So the expectation remains that Canadian employers are going to look to citizens and permanent residents already in Canada. What express entry does is provides a tool for an employer who is unable to find the person with the right fit of credentials, experience, education, and so on in their given labor market and is looking for a foreign worker. Coming back to the slide, candidates can increase their chances of being invited to apply by promoting themselves directly to employers. The candidates without a nomination from a province or territory or that don't have a job offer are going to be required to register in the Government of Canada Job Bank. And this will increase their chances of finding a job before arriving in Canada. Candidates can also promote themselves on private sector job boards, via websites, etc. On the next slide, we have a very high-level view of the application process. So what express entry does is that we start with step one with the individual completing an express entry profile online. The individuals who meet the entry criteria, we're starting with the box on the left, will be entered into a pool of potential immigrants. The individuals who don't have the job offer, they're not nominated by a province, need to register on the Government of Canada Job Bank. And in the second step, the individuals who best meet the needs are then invited to submit an application. So with the next slide, we'll go into a bit more detail, because that was very high level, doesn't yet give you a sense of how does this work. So step one, the actual profile. So a candidate expresses the interest in coming to Canada, they complete a profile online. That profile asks them about skills, work experience, language ability, education. In order to qualify for the pool, the candidates must meet the criteria of at least one of the programs that was previously listed on the slide. At this stage, the candidate is self-declaring. Their claims regarding their education, their skills, their experience is going to be verified at the point that they're invited to apply and they submit that application, and that application is reviewed by an immigration officer. Candidates are going to have a strong incentive to tell the truth because there are penalties associated with misrepresentation, and that includes being barred from applying to come to Canada for a period of 5 years. The next slide. So we continue on with step one. So the candidates without that job offer or nomination register with the job bank, and then they are in the pool. And the job bank will help to match candidates with Canadian employers and jobs based on skills, knowledge, and experience. The next slide, in terms of the pool. So the candidates that meet the criteria for the pool are entered into that pool. Once they are there, they will be given points. They will be given a point score based on the information that they provided on their profile about their skills, about their work experience, their education. And they'll be ranked against the other candidates in the pool. Candidates are going to be awarded extra points if they have a job offer or if they have a nomination from a province. Therefore, we're going to be encouraging candidates to promote themselves. And while in the pool, candidates will be required to update their profile whenever their circumstances may change. Next slide. The invitation to apply. So express entry candidates with the highest rank will be invited to apply. So who is invited to apply? You see the 3 bullet points on the slide. A candidate who has high human capital scores, a person who has a valid job offer, or a person who has a nomination. So I'm going to open up a bracket here in terms of the individuals with high human capital scores. You well know that every year the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration tables an immigration plan in Parliament. That plan establishes the targets as it relates to each of the immigration classes. And so the department will be pulling from the pool those candidates with the high scores in order to meet the targets that have been established for economic immigration for that given year, in addition to those who have the individuals who have the job offer or those who have been nominated. Next slide, continuing on with invitation to apply. So again, once the individual, the candidate, receives the invitation, they have 60 days to submit an online application, and as part of one of the 3 programs that are listed there, or if the candidate has a nomination from a province, they're processed through the provincial nominee program. And again, the department is committing to process the vast majority of these cases from the moment that we receive a complete application in 6 months or less. Next slide. So under express entry, provinces and territories are going to be able to nominate candidates who meet their unique labor market needs, either on a regional or local basis. When an express entry candidate is identified through a PNP, they're going to be given sufficient points, so they will be among the highest ranking candidates, and they will therefore automatically receive an invitation to apply. I'm going to finish off with a couple of things to keep in mind about express entry. Potential candidates are not required to hire an immigration representative in order to make an application. As part of their profiles, candidates must submit valid language test results, and if they're applying under federal skilled worker, they also need to include educational credential assessments. There's no fee for submitting a profile, but there are fees associated with getting the language assessed and getting the educational credentials assessed. Express entry is open to individuals in skilled occupations. So for those of you that are familiar with the National Occupation Classifications, or NOC, this is for those individuals who are in classification O, A, or B. Profiles are valid for 1 year. Candidates who don't receive an invitation to apply after 12 months can resubmit their application, and they will re-enter the pool as long as they still meet the requirements. Final slide. So the launch in January 2015, at that time the modernized job bank is going to be accessible to those candidates who are in the pool, and the department has committed to continue to engage with stakeholders and with employers beyond the implementation date, so that we can continue to improve the functioning of the new system. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.